Injective is a great example of how in crypto speculation and narrative trumps the fundamentals. Now what we see over here, that's the total value lock, the TVL, the capital that's currently on the Injective chain. That chart does not look that pretty, but the price went all the way up to $6. And what's explaining the disconnect? It's new code commits on the GitHub repository. So the developer team is finally doing some work. Hi, my name is Gerhard. I've been in crypto for the last 8 years. I hit my first million 3 years ago. And in this video, I want to share the data points that I personally look at in order to decide whether or not to buy or sell a cryptocurrency. So we are looking at Injective INJ today. On average, I've been outperforming buying and holding Bitcoin by on average 2% per month. Now there is some volatility to that outperformance, but the long term matters. If you're interested in copy trading automatically or manually, feel free to check out the pinned comment down below. Now this move to $6 might not even be that impressive in the grand scheme of things. At one point, Injective was above $40. So do we still have a potential 8x from here? And is it worth it to stake Injective for the 6.22% annual reward? What we're seeing over here, that's the Injective price in US dollars. And while there is a lot of volatility, long term it tends to trend up. And it seems like we have just hit a support. Those two are perfectly parallel lines. So this turnaround wasn't necessarily surprising. Using this reference point, the potential upside is even 1,500% from here. Now, in order for something like this to happen, we need to have the entire crypto space move with it, right? There is a lot of correlation within crypto. When Bitcoin goes up, many altcoins go up as well. When Bitcoin crashes, most altcoins crash. That's why I like to look at relative valuations. How is an altcoin doing relative to the rest of the space? Does it make sense to buy that particular altcoin, irrespective of what the market in general is doing? To answer questions like this, I like this representation of the price data. This now shows Injective relative to the others' market cap. So how is Injective doing within the altcoin market? Is it currently outperforming the other altcoins or is it underperforming? We tend to trade in a range. The dotted line, that's the average ratio of Injective relative to the altcoins. And going to that equilibrium would mean another outperformance of roughly 110%. Going all the way to the extreme valuation means an outperformance of 750%. So when we see a rally like this in the US dollar chart, at least half of that is the entire market going up. The most bullish case for an outperformance of Injective is quote unquote only 750%. Now historically, Injective was struggling because of its inflating token supply. The token supply expanded up until the end of 2023. Since then, we have a stable supply, and so we don't have any additional selling pressure by the early investors, by the team, by the insiders. Let's have a look at a few comparisons, how high Injective could really go. This here is the RWA space. Ondo Finance has a market cap. The leader, Ondo Finance, has a market cap of 1.9 billion. And Injective is currently at 500 million. So that's roughly a 4x from here. Here we've got decentralized finance in general, and here the leader is Hyperliquid with 9 billion. Is Injective going to flip Hyperliquid anytime soon? I doubt it, but it does give us an idea that probably a 20x, at least in terms of outperformance, is very unlikely. Let's have a look at the on-chain data. So on the Ethereum chain, we've got 48,000 holders. Now what we see over here on the left, that's the number of wallets on chain that have at least 200 tokens. In the middle, it's 2,000 tokens. On the right, it's 20,000 tokens. So that's roughly $1,000 worth of the token, $10,000 worth of the token, and $100,000 worth of the token. We can see that some whales have quite aggressively sold off at the end of the year. We can also see how the number of retail investors did not necessarily grow that much anymore over the last year. There was quite fast growth up until the end of 2023, and that then stalled at the end of 2024. And so now there's speculation with the Perpetual futures, so with the levered bets on the Injective price. What we see over here, that's the funding rate of Injective over time. And interestingly enough, that is turning negative since February of this year. So the short-term traders on the Perpetual futures that use leverage to bet for or against Injective, they now suddenly suddenly start to bet on a falling Injective price, despite the relatively neutral tokenomics. So no more selling pressure by the insiders. Where does all of this negativity come from? I do not know. What I do know though is that this current price rally is liquidating a lot of shorts. So people that are betting on a falling price of Injective. The trading volume is also going up, and so is the open interest. So the open interest is the amount of bets on the price. When this is very high, then many people are currently betting on the price. There tends to be more manipulation. When this is very low, there tends to be less attention on the asset and also less manipulation. Now currently we are going up, but we are not yet at the 200 million or even 300 million mark. We have to watch this closely, because once open interest turns around again, this will also push the price down with it. But there still seems to be some upside. I don't think that this current rally, at least short term, is already over for Injective. The numbers look too bullish. We are still far away from an equilibrium. We do not have any token inflation. And on the US dollar chart, the upside looks massive. I don't think we'll go all the way up to those levels, but comparables also look rather bullish. Injective still has a relatively small market cap. Yes, there is no long-term accumulation on chain, but nowadays the vast majority of trading happens on the perpetual futures anyways. And when we see more negative sentiment, more people betting on falling prices than on rising prices, that's potentially even a positive thing, because that could induce market makers to manipulate the price upwards to short squeeze the pessimists. As usual, I have run thousands of backtests to try to figure out what's the best moving average combination for Injective to time the market. This is the performance over time. The strategy works especially well in the last 2 years, and it's the golden or death cross of the 38-day versus 35-day simple moving average. So we got a golden cross around here at the beginning of May. For as long as the shorter term moving average stays above the longer term moving average, the momentum is likely still intact. If you're interested in running similar kinds of backtests, again, feel free to check out Premium. That's also where you get access to the automatic copy trading, and that's also where I share my personal trades. For example, this one here, that's a little freebie. We got a message just yesterday to short Zcash. And that's what happened since then. We shorted over here, Zcash underperformed the rest of the market already by 7%. And that's why the copy trading vault is again at an all-time high. We are now at 450k gains, on the way to hit our target of 40% per annum. That's what we had. Momentum for Injective still looks healthy, but of course it's important to take profit along the way. This is a momentum play. This is not a long-term acquisition on chain. People simply just ride the current wave, and that at some point will turn around again. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish this regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you next time here on YouTube. Cheers.